Tiny Toon Adventures Busters Hidden Treasure is a Sega Megadrive video game released by Konami in 1993, and it's based on the hit cartoon of the same name back in the early 90s. The cartoon aired for a few years and got a whole bunch of awards, so it was only time before it arrived on the 16-bit consoles. There were previous games in the series on the NES and Game Boy. Surprisingly enough, even though there was a Tiny Toon Super Nintendo game released around the same time as the Megadrive one, it was completely different. The Megadrive one is much more based on the old NES platformers released before this. So what's the story to the game? Well, it's not the strongest plot ever, but it gets the job done. Buster and the gang are in the warehouse at Acme University, and they find an old treasure map. Montana Max, being the nice guy he's always been, decides to run off to get the treasure on his own and leave you in the dust. But before he does that, he gets his doctor friend, Dr. Gene Splicer, to brainwash all your mates into sort of stopping you from getting to that point. So yeah, as I say, it's nothing major. It sounds like a weird version of the Goonies, and it's even got a pirate ship later in the game. So anyway, straight into the game. This is one of the first stages. It looks a little bit like Sonic the Hedgehog, but there's definitely a lot more exploration to be found in this game. Buster controls pretty well, and there's a lot of collectibles to be found. Collecting 100 carrots gives you your extra life, and extra hearts can be collected to give more health as well. You can also find extra lives hidden around the levels. You can also collect an item which allows you to use a character like Little Beeper to destroy everything on the screen. It's pretty much like a smart bomb you would find in a shooting game. The only thing is they're pretty useless. You never really use them, and later in the game you don't get that many of them anyway, so it was a bit of a pointless addition to the game in my opinion. To finish off the stage, just touch Go Go Dodo and you'll go back to the world map screen and be able to choose another level. As you can see, the world map is similar to Super Mario World. There are several hidden exits in certain levels which open up giving alternative routes. Buster has the ability to travel quite fast, but most of the time it's best to slow down, otherwise you will run into an enemy or obstacle. For some reason the colour blue must do that. There are plenty of different types of stages throughout the game's 35 levels. As you can see, this is one of the forest stages. You need to navigate through the forest. You can jump up on the trees, crawl across the wires high up in the tree levels, and a lot of the enemies were from the cartoon series. A few I'm sure were added just for the game. The graphics are pretty nice and colourful and represent the cartoon in full glory. The music also is very catchy and has some great tunes, and I'm sure you'll find yourself humming along to them next time you play. After finishing each main area, you'll have a boss fight. As you can see, here's Dr. Gene Splicer, who's brainwashed Dizzy Devil in this occasion. These all pretty much follow a standard routine of jumping on the scientist's head a few times, and then it'll release the mind control on the character you're trying to rescue back. Most of the levels in the game feature generic platform style of levels. So here we've got a fire stage. Here is an underground ice cavern. It is a shame the game didn't take many risks like its Super Nintendo cousin. A lot of platformer games back in the 16-bit days, they all play very similar, and whilst this game offers a fresh take on the platformer, it could have taken some risks and tried something different. One thing I will say is that the game isn't a walk in the park. It gradually gets a bit more difficult as you progress, and later levels will leave you pulling your hair out. Seasoned platformer players shouldn't have too much trouble though. And you can't forget the classic water stage. One thing I really used to hate was games with password systems. Sure, I can understand that including a battery save feature into every game probably wasn't cost effective, but did they really have to make you enter such a long password? The worst thing is when you accidentally write down a letter or two wrong, and you end up having to go back to an older password and having to redo some of the game. One of the most interesting levels in the game is this ghost ship. It kind of acts as a midway point through the game. It's fun to play and as a good boss. It just changes up the gameplay a bit from having your standard sort of fire, forest, ice type of levels. It's also got some seriously funky music. In a handful of levels in the game, there's the opportunity of finding a special stage hidden away inside the occasional level. These transport you to a place called Wacky Land, and you can collect extra carrots and extra lives usually. There's a few of these Wacky Lands in the game, and once you complete this stage, you can just head back to the level you were last in and finish it as standard. You need to be a bit more careful on these last final stages, as if you die you don't get a password. Make sure you've got a bit of time to spare because the last final few stages are quite tricky to finish. Firstly, you start off in the factory area. This does make a slight change to the other levels in the game, even if it does seem a bit off compared to the rest of the levels. I died a lot during the playthrough, but you just need to take your time and most of all, learn the levels. This first stage is more time consuming than anything and can be a pain to redo if you lose all your health. After you finish a maze type level before this, you need to escape the Wrath of Elmira. Truth be told, this took me a lot longer than it should have. Being used to playing iOS runner style games, you'd think you just continued running to the right. Here's a tip, don't. I wasted a lot of lives making this simple mistake. Bearing in mind I haven't played this game for nearly 20 years, it's something I may have just forgot. The trick is not to speed off ahead, but to jump back over Elmira to confuse her and run to the end of the stage. So we've reached the end boss. It's Montana Max in a robot suit. Unfortunately, it's not the most difficult boss fight in the world. You just need to avoid his lasers and, like most of the other bosses in the game, just jump on his head. It takes a good 4 or 5 times, then he'll change his attack pattern very slightly and you need to jump on his head another 5 times, and that's pretty much it. It's a shame they couldn't have tried something different, but it does the job. So there you go, the game's complete. I definitely recommend this game if you're into your old school platformers. Personally, I always preferred it to the original Megadrive Sonic the Hedgehog. I prefer the exploration, finding the hidden areas, and it definitely can take a few hours to complete. Sure, it gets tricky as you play on, but that's what video games should be. So yeah, if you can, definitely give it a go, even with the slightly rubbish save password system. One little fact, I'm not completely sure if it's 100% right or not, but as you can see, they used the money to turn the island into an amusement park. Now, there's also another 1993 Tiny Toon game that was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which takes place at an amusement park. Is it the same place? I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want any more, then please comment or subscribe to my channel. Thank you.